How do you even define a city when it comes to city building games? I challenge you to figure out those city limits. City builders help define who I am. SimCity 2000 along with Caesar 3 are some of my most played games and made me fall in love with history. So imagine what these games could do for you. I spent ages building this, so let's find out, and welcome to the most anticipated city building games in 2024. Now, if you liked The Settlers but hate the new Settlers game, well, good news. Pioneers of Pagonia. This is actually from the developers of the original Settlers, but they've just gone ahead and made their own game called Pioneers of Pagonia. This is all about exploration, discovery, and reuniting the fantastical islands of Pagonia, and you'll be able to build over 40 different buildings and use 70 different types of goods, managing widely branched production chains, and you can get creative when it comes to your economy. Impressively, this game is promising the ability to have thousands of inhabitants, procedurally generated maps, you protect your population from hostile animals, plundering bandits, and mythical creatures, and you'll have to unite with scattered tribes. So basically, it sounds like the old school Settlers, but modern. And if you are concerned about how this is going, don't worry, it went into early access in December 2023, right at the end of the year, to very positive reviews. We're looking at mid 80% positive, and they've got a whole roadmap and development updates coming for the economy, mining, a co-op update where you can team up with your friends, and various quality of life stuff is also on the way. So it's in early access now. It's hit the ground running, everyone seems to be pretty much on board with it, and if it just gets better through the year, then Pioneers of Pagonia should be turning into something quite special. They are aiming for at least 6 months in early access, they of course might take longer, but 2024 is the plan for a full release for Pioneers of Pagonia. Flying in beyond these stars. Build a city on the back of a space whale and learn to coexist as you journey through the stars. Manage intricate supply chains and the needs of your people as you build outposts, meet aliens, and uncover the mysteries of the universe. Now, building on the backs of giant animals is a bit of a trend for city builders right now, and some of them are pretty interesting. In this one, you have a home among the stars. You will be building a sprawling city, but you're on a universe-traveling space whale, as your people seek places to live and work. You'll be reaching far and wide as you terraform the land around you to better suit your needs, and you'll create a thriving ecosystem by digging canals and adding topsoil in preparation for farming, and planting trees to maintain a steady flow of raw materials. So this is a bit like City Builder, but also restoring the natural environment, which sort of has some Timberborn vibes, or maybe Terra Nil. And as you progress through the technologies and gaining access to more advanced goods, you'll need to set up logistical networks and mining infrastructure, but if you go too far, then maybe your space whale won't be too happy about it. So overall, this one is looking pretty promising, and it's pretty much a sequel to their previous city building game called Before We Leave. So I suppose Beyond These Stars is essentially after we leave. But yeah, it looks pretty interesting and seems to have a lot of promise, and if they're just improving from the last game, then this should be pretty good. Right now, it's just set for a 2024 release window, but nothing specific yet. For a swashbuckling builder, Republic of Pirates. Establish and grow a pirate utopia during the golden age of piracy. You create a resource-based economy, engage in real-time naval combat, and navigate diplomatic relations with rival powers, all the while exploring the far reaches of the Caribbean in search of the ultimate fortune and glory. So with a bit of Anno vibes, this one is a city builder plus a ship naval combat thing with apparently a secret treasure, and you'll be utilizing over 100 unique buildings to provide resources and infrastructure required to grow your burgeoning republic. The battles themselves are where you command a fleet of ships, and you'll explore the archipelago and conquer new territories. And on the topic of diplomacy, you will be harboring rivalries or maybe even forging alliances. Now, through this game, there will be missions for you to complete. You'll be receiving orders to attack settlements or collect bounties, striking up trade deals, but you get to choose how you want to play this game. There's supposed to be flexible gameplay modes with free play or configurable settings or new maps, where you can pick and choose what kind of game you want to play. So maybe you just want the building aspect or you want more of the naval combat stuff, then this all sort of can be up to you. Maybe a competitor for the Anno series, but we'll see if they can actually bring it up to snuff, yeah? Because it's right now just set for a 2024 release window, and we'll see through the year if they can actually set sail. And then one that looked quite promising, New Cycle. This is a city building game with the focus on survival. An apocalyptic series of solar flares has pretty much destroyed the world, and human society has been thrown into disarray. It's up to you to establish a new settlement and develop it all the way from humble beginnings to industrial metropolis. Now, you get to sculpt your settlement how you like using a free-form or grid-based design, because I know that's always a contention for a lot of people. Some people really love grids, some people really love curved roads. Well, this game can do both. But you'll be doing it in an uncaring world with sandstorms, shortages, wildfire, and natural disasters. Don't forget refugee crises, unrest, disease outbreaks, and just generally everything is trying to kill you. So you will have to lead your people, distributing food, water, tools, and clothes to make sure that they can survive and be productive members of this post-apocalyptic society. And over time, complex production chains should form, and research and progress will lead you back to modern day. Well, that's if you can survive long enough anyway. You will also have to explore the world, and story and lore will unfold as you go along. Now, this game just released into early access at the time of recording, and it's received mostly positive reviews, 75+% positive, and that's pretty good for the very start of early access. Having said that, they are planning to be in early access for 1 to 2 years. So it's a 2024 game for now, but full release will likely be in 2025 or maybe even 2026 if things take longer. Not really longer than expected, they are kind of planning up to 2 years in early access. We're looking at full release later on down the line, but you can play New Cycle right now. Hey, now that you're a bit into the list, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it would be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. Thank you! Alright, next game. And then for another genre mix, Kaiserpunk. This game is very interesting because it seems to be combining city building and grand strategy. Well, they're trying to make it seamlessly. And that seems to be the trend with a lot of grand strategies these days, where it's trying to mix in other genres, particularly RTS or city building. And in Kaiserpunk, you're supposed to build and conquer in an alternative 20th century world. You engage in battle on land, sea, and air, and you use your economic power to emerge as the ultimate victor. So you'll be shaping your own city-state from the ground up, where every street, factory, and skyline is up to you. You unlock new buildings and building upgrades. You build on ground and on water, and new tech is unlocked depending on how you build your city. On the grand strategy side, there's over 100 regions to be conquered and exploited. Each region comes with its own bonuses and penalties, so you gotta choose where you wanna go. And you'll be assembling your armies to take on the rival factions of the world on land, sea, and air. There's also production chains and logistics, where there's over 100 various resources to mine, farm, refine, and manufacture, and you have to get things around with transportation networks and trade. Overall, it's a game of choices. You're going to be choosing things at every step of the way, and if you make the wrong choices, you may be stripped of your power. I mean, personally, this seems very, very promising. It looks really nice to look at, actually. As a city builder fan, this might be the in point for getting into grand strategies and just scaling up that gameplay. But you know, it really comes down to how it's all executed. And right now, Kaiserpunk is just looking at a 2024 release at some point. Nothing specific yet, but I am personally very curious of what Kaiserpunk is gonna be at the end of the day. Pax Augusta. This really seems to be a project of passion, and it seems to have a lot of promise. In this game, you be a part of important decisions within the Roman Empire. You build up a prospering city, you take care of your citizens, trade goods or earn money to build impressive monuments, and hire advisors. Secure your city, increase your power to become the Senate, and maybe even the next emperor. Generally speaking, this game looks really good so far. A lot of buildings have been recreated one-to-one to how they historically looked. It's promising a sandbox mode, a story mode developed by a historian. There's defense and military with towers and gates. You will be fighting fire, crime, and population uprisings. There are also barbarians to deal with, legions to manage. Huge maps are being promised from Britannia to Dacia, and so much more. Visually speaking, it does look pretty decent, maybe a bit grim and dark, which does sort of feel a little bit early 2000s, but you know, it seems to be coming along quite well. So for Roman city builders, this one is definitely one to watch, and at the moment it's just set to release sometime in 2024, so we will see how Pax Augusta comes together. Then for a really cool looking one that I've been watching for a couple years, Earth of Oryn. This is an indie city builder strategy game set in a medieval world, which is filled with story and heart. And I have to say, it looks gorgeous. Starting from nothing, you shape your kingdom according to your vision, while managing the needs and wants of your people. Now, this is a low-poly art style, but they've done something with it that just looks very unique. Nothing else really kind of looks like this. And I have to say, I love the way it looks. You'll be building great cities and mighty castles and bustling towns as you set laws and moral systems to guide your people. You raise and manage armies to protect your kingdom, you manage the economy, gather resources, and trade with other civilizations, and research new technologies. As you explore these untouched lands, discovering creatures, biomes, and those other civilizations. Now, when it comes to building, you could design your own buildings from the ground up or using a prefab system to just get things going. And building gets even more complex with powered buildings, with moving parts like bridges and even elevators, which is going to come in handy when you have to master water and the flow of water. So there really is a lot to this. It looks great. It seems to have a ton of detail, visually and gameplay-wise. There's these large procedural worlds, there's strategy and military, there is a creative mode so you can just build whatever you want in a sandbox, there's weather and day-night cycles, exploration, and everything. I mean, there just seems to be so much here. So right now, there isn't any particular release window for Earth of Oryn, but it is definitely one to watch because it just seems so interesting. Hopefully they'll be able to pull it off, otherwise we'll get some nice screenshots at least. Going all fantasy, Fabledom. Once upon a village. This is set in a wholesome fairy tale world and is supposed to be an idealistic, laid-back city builder. You'll enjoy the growth of your settlement, trade, and use diplomacy to ally or challenge your neighbors, and most importantly, find yourself a prince or princess and live happily ever after. You know, with all the stressful survival, post-apocalyptic, hostile city builders out there, sometimes, you know, maybe a chill, pleasant one is something you'd want on the table, and this is supposed to be that. You'll be collecting resources and shaping your settlement in a flourishing land, and there'll be tales of trade, feuds, and partnerships. You'll find a spouse, and although it is a chill, relaxing city builder, you will still build an army and elect a hero to protect and conquer, but you know, it's all very cute. They say they're inspired by the Settlers, Foundation, and Kingdoms and Castles, and you can see that quite easily. Now, this has been in early access since about the middle of 2023 on Steam. 2 very positive reviews, just under 90% positive, and I do know user reviews aren't the be-all and end-all of how good or bad a game is, but it's an indicator. And they are planning for about 1 year in early access, so that means that the goal for release is supposed to be April in 2024, though of course, With early access games, it can take longer, but if they're anywhere close to hitting their goal, this should fully release in 2024, but if you like the look of it right now, then you can just have a closer look and jump into Fabledom. Next up, TerraScape. Staying in the more chill vibes, this is supposed to be a cozy city puzzler, where you build gorgeous kingdoms by placing buildings strategically on idyllic floating islands. You discover secret combinations, explore randomly generated maps, and there's even multiplayer game modes. Overall, this seems like a city builder that's pretty much inspired by Dorfromantik. Dorfromantik was a puzzler tile placer / builder thing, where it was mostly about relaxing and placing things for adjacency bonuses. This one seems a bit more on the city builder side, but it's still a city builder puzzle-ish kind of combination. And the addition of multiplayer matches where you can compete with friends is kind of a odd but maybe cool addition. It does look nice, but obviously not for everyone. But if you liked Dorfromantik, then this might be a twist that will appeal to you. This one has also been in early access since about the middle of 2023, to also very positive user reviews, just under 90%, and they are also aiming for about a year in early access. So this should be a 2024 full release unless TerraScape gets delayed. We've got Siege of Irdor, a city builder strategy game set in dark medieval times, which has a lot of defensive building and surviving versus waves of enemies. So sort of like a village builder plus stronghold kind of thing. Although it's medieval, it is fantasy, as there's an army of darkness coming to kill you. So you'll be building up your fortress, gathering and producing resources, managing your people and training an army, and you survive night sieges in a real-time with active pause combat system. As you survive, you'll be discovering the story of shadows. There are a number of random events you're gonna have to deal with, and you'll need to adapt to weather and seasons. So make sure you keep progressing, upgrading your technology, and building buildings. Now this one sort of feels like a medieval building kind of strategy game, sort of in the vein of They Are Billions. You know, ever since They Are Billions popularized that sort of survival building genre kind of thing, we've seen quite a few games attempt that formula. You know, diplomacy is not an option is another one. But Siege of Irdor could be something unique. There's no particular release window right now, so we'll just keep an eye on this one moving forward. Going isometric, Folklands. This is a relaxing settlement builder with simulated citizens, and you'll find that great stories can emerge from humble beginnings in this little town. Harvest raw materials, manage food supplies, and farm to ensure your folks are happy, employed, and safe. Now, although this is supposed to be a relaxing settlement city builder, there will be trading and diplomacy, where you must create production chains and produce resources so that your people can live. You'll be overcoming adversities like fire, sickness, and crime. And depending on how you build and provide for your people, it will attract different kinds of citizens to come live with you. And there's also multiplayer where you can play with or against your friends or against an AI. So you can play this city builder by yourself or in multiplayer, cooperative or competitive. And bonus point, they are planning Steam Workshop support for mods. I mean, it's a bit hard to pin this one down. Like, it's a really cool idea, but also visually it does look a little bit more 2D. Some might think it's a bit more dated looking. But you know, if you're not too sure, like if the concept sounds interesting and you like the isometric look, at the time of recording, there is a free demo on Steam, so you can go check that out. Demos sometimes come and go, but that means there's also a lot of footage for Folklands out there. Now, right now, there is no fixed released window, but it could be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Moving on, Post-Apo Builder. Now, I'm not always a big fan of very literal titles for games. Post-Apo Builder, as in post-apocalyptic builder. Yeah, okay. But besides the name, I suppose what really matters is whether it's a good game. In this game, you're supposed to be building up your own city in a post-apocalyptic future. You scavenge and fight for resources. You restore civilization on the ashes of the fallen world. You explore wastelands and protect your people by fighting off raiders, wild tribesmen, and natural disasters. So this seems to have all the trappings of a post-apocalyptic city builder. And it does look visually good, and there's controllable vehicles, and it does seem to have some unique points to it. But it's just so hard to see how exactly this is going to be different from the many other post-apocalyptic city builders we have. Now, at the time of recording, there is actually a free demo for Post-Apo Builder, but it's listed as a separate thing on Steam called Post-Apo Builder Prologue, which is actually kind of what I prefer demos to be, this separate listed free game, because then people can leave reviews. And the prologue for this game currently has mostly positive reviews, floating above the 70% positive mark. So not only can you jump in and try the game for yourself for free, you can see what other people think of it as well, and get a good idea of whether you want to be waiting for the full release of Post-Apo Builder or not, which is set for a Q1 2024 release window. Now, this one's drummed up quite a bit of interest. Metropolis 1998. For the nostalgic city builder gamers out there, this one might strike a chord. Not only is it supposed to be a 90s set game, it's a pixel art isometric game with a lot of detail. It's supposed to be a fresh take on a modern city simulation experience. You get to design your buildings, you grow and maintain your city, and you manage real-time traffic while fulfilling specific citizen needs in what's supposed to be a massively simulated game. That simulation, for example for the traffic, is, they say, capable of pathing around 100,000 plus people and vehicles. And your citizens will be going to work, sleeping, relaxing, eating, and just living their lives. So I know Metropolis 1998 isn't a game for absolutely everyone, but personally, as a 90s gamer who has played games through the 90s, particularly city builders, this sort of feels really cool. I don't know how cool it's going to be on release, but they are planning to go into early access at some point, and early access is supposed to last for 2 years. So it's not going to be a full release in 2024, but likely early access relatively soon, because what we can see right now is that there's a free demo on Steam, so you can just try Metropolis 1998 for a taste of it to see if it's something you want to keep an eye on. And if you like it, then we can wait for the early access release. Settlements Rising. Here you gather raw materials, produce equipment, and ensure villagers thrive by managing required resources. You face challenges such as natural disasters, predators, and raiders, all while you're building ships for exploration and trade, and you accumulate wealth and loot. Generally, you protect your people and build a thriving community. Now, this is sort of a colony simulator builder game set in the Middle Ages, and all your villagers are simulated. It kind of feels like sort of Banished, but also sort of Stronghold, but also there's enhancement cards as well. I mean, there's a lot of games that are sort of adjacent to this one that have come and gone over the last few years. But this one does seem to have some cool things going for it. It is low poly, but there's quite a lot of visual detail, and at the time of recording this video, there is a free demo for you to try. So, if you're just sort of curious about it or wary about it, no worries, just try the free demo for Settlements Rising, and then see what you think of it. It is supposed to be releasing in 2024, so we'll see how it goes from the free demo to full release over the next year. Now, this one isn't quite as ancient as the others, but it is HistoriCity Florence. This is a historical, mission-based, stylized 3D city builder set in Renaissance Florence. You use the strength of your economy, the power of religion, and the beauty of classical art and architecture to rebuild a city decimated by the Black Plague and civil unrest. This one is promising classic city building gameplay, where you manage resources, expand your city, construct buildings, plan infrastructure, and balance the needs of your populace. There's supposed to be a set of challenging missions, which is nice to see in city building games. There's an economic simulation with workers establishing industries, trade, and all of that, including budgets and taxes. There's legendary artists. You have to deal with the plague. Religious fervor can be a problem. You'll be constructing historical landmarks and progressing through technological advancements, because this is Renaissance, so there's a lot being discovered. Or rather, rediscovered, I suppose. Generally, it seems like a cool idea, and there's a lot going on, though it is also a kind of a low poly approach, which is up to you to decide whether you like it or not. It does still seem to have a lot of detail once a lot of things are constructed. But yeah, it's supposed to release sometime Q1 in 2024, so we shouldn't be waiting too long for HistoriCity Florence. For an ancient Roman city builder, CITADELUM. Now, this game was just recently revealed properly, and it's one where you build your own settlement, gather resources, and evolve it into a magnificent city. Some interesting points are that there's a world map. You zoom out from your city and there's a whole military system, which you travel around the world with your soldiers and conquer and fight things. But also, to importantly note, it is an auto-battler system. So there is military and you do place your soldiers on the battlefield, but then it's an auto-battling system, which some would love and some would hate. But you know, auto-battlers have been picking up pace in recent years. People keep telling me that Mechabellum is an amazing game. So this might be one for that sort of player. Or if you just want to focus more on the city building aspect. There's a lot of things in this game that harken back to older games, like being able to see into buildings, like in CivCity Rome. And some aspects do also look and feel like Grand Ages Rome, though overall it has more of a cartoony look and approach to the game. It's not necessarily trying to be historically accurate, it's quite lighthearted. There's visuals of soldiers riding mechanical horses and automated chariot carts. It's not going for a serious approach to the ancient Roman Empire, so you might enjoy that, you might not. You can see it on screen for yourself. And also the giant gods walking around, I'm not sure how to feel about them. Are they like too giant? But I don't know. They are supposed to be larger than life. Anyway, CITADELUM is supposed to be releasing sometime in 2024. They seem quite set on it, but they have not set a fixed release date yet. For a low poly Rome, Nova Roma. The glory of Rome is at your fingertips in this city building game where you must appease the gods, enact laws, and develop complex supply chains to meet the needs of your citizens. Now, I know a lot of you are put off by low poly, but some of you aren't, and this one has some interesting mechanics, most notably the god powers and god interactions, and also the fluid dynamics of water. You do actually have to manage the flow of water with your aqueducts and dams, and if that's messed up, then flooding can occur. So the idea with low poly graphics is that it's supposed to allow for more complex simulations, and that seems to be the objective here in Nova Roma, where it just has a lot going on. We had a quick look at this earlier in 2023, but nothing really proper so far. And Nova Roma is set to release sometime in 2024, which is when we should get a better look and to see if Nova Roma can actually live up to all the promises. With a similar approach, but ancient Greece instead. Ancient Polis. Travel back 2,600 years to ancient Greece, where you'll be building and managing your city and experiencing and shaping the life of ancient Greeks in your own way. You'll take care of your people, providing food and trading with allies and waging war as you lay the foundations for the first democracy. You do build up your city first for the normal people and then the aristocrats and intellectuals as well. You know, they're a little bit separated at the time. There are also gods, which you should not mess with, otherwise they will curse you. There's a tech tree to research your way through, and you have to protect your people from dangerous wild animals. It's a nice looking low poly-ish game with more detail on the buildings. So it kind of looks like the environment is low poly, but then the buildings themselves are quite nicely textured. It's an interesting mix of art styles. But for Ancient Polis, it is supposed to be coming in 2024. If you like these sorts of games but wanted it to be in Greece, here you go. Next up, we've got one that we've been watching for a few years now and been waiting for some kind of release. Thrive, Heavy Lies the Crown. This is supposed to be a complex city builder where the fate of your kingdom hinges on your every decision. You explore this medieval land, alone or with friends, and you make tough moral choices as you conquer your foes in RTS combat. So you'll be building up your village and raising an army to conquer and rule in this medieval fantasy-ish city builder. It has a good and evil system, benevolence or tyranny, so your village will sort of be shaped by your moral choices, which has that nice black and white vibe to it. And you know, generally the idea of survival city builders with military, it sounds cool. But Thrive Heavy Lies the Crown has been on the horizon for a while now. And we've seen some gameplay over the last year in demos and tests and stuff, but we haven't really gotten close to that full release. It is supposed to be releasing into early access in 2024, which is why I'm mentioning it here. But this is the kind of game that could just take forever in early access. I really hope it does deliver on all of its promises, but we'll have to see what lies in store in 2024. For Thrive Heavy Lies the Crown. And then for one that we've been watching for a while, but it is supposed to be releasing, it's called Roman Triumph. This is a Roman strategy city builder where you must build a thriving city from the ground up, you manage resources and people, and survive against a plethora of threats, including gods, the Hydra, the Minotaur, barbarians, and more. So this is kind of a military survival city builder where you are trying to just hold your own against these giant monstrous threats. Over time, you'll be creating your own little empire, designing your city in a randomly generated world, not just to make sure everyone is fed and satisfied, but also it's designed in a way that is beautiful and defensible, because over time, the attacks will become increasingly more dangerous and threatening. And don't forget the gods. If you don't keep them happy, terrible things will happen. There will also be researching of technology, growing crops and raising animals, a whole multitude of Roman buildings to build, including the Hospitium, Insula, Senate, trading with other cities for resources. And this one isn't a campaign with missions, it is a procedurally generated world, but with supposedly realistic landscapes and beautiful nature for you to tame. Now, it all sounds really cool, but we have been watching Roman Triumph for years. But it is set for a 31st of July 2024 release date. A specific date has been set. We will have to see if they're able to stick to it. And finally, we get our hands on this game that has been promising a lot for a long time. Alright, then I'm gonna mention a slightly contentious one, Surviving the Abyss. It's Earth 1976, and you have been tasked with managing a deep-sea science facility, working to perfect cloning. You explore the darkness and keep your crew alive in a hardcore survival colony city builder. But beware, in the darkness there are untold horrors. Now, this one went into early access at the start of 2023, and it's got mixed reviews, but to be objective, it is like 60-something%. So it's not a bad game in early access, it's just a little bit mixed, and it's still been getting updates. So it is getting better over time, but maybe a bit slowly. The original estimate for a full release was 6 to 12 months, and we're already past that. So it's taking longer than expected, and if development continues, then Surviving the Abyss might turn out to be something quite nice. Especially if you like the theme and the setting, then this is something that would hit you a bit better than others. So this is one that's not going to be for everyone, but if you like the theme, and you like the way they're doing the mechanics, then you know, usually 60-something% games, there are some people that really love it. So I just wanted to let you know about Surviving the Abyss, but have a close look before diving into it too deeply. Then I'm gonna mention this next game one last time, Moons of Ardan. You embark on a space city building adventure to develop a thriving civilization in a real-time planetary system. You oversee production chains, cater to the needs of your axonauts, you recover their lost technologies, and navigate resource transportation in a system where the planets and everything are moving in real time. Now, I don't want to go too much into this because I've listed Moons of Ardan for a number of years now. It entered early access towards the end of 2021, so it has been in early access for a few years at this point. and they were supposed to remain in early access until the end of 2023. It is 2024 and they still haven't fully released. It is still being updated, but taking longer than expected. I'm gonna list this one last time because it should at least release in 2024, otherwise it's gonna be one of those games where I never stop talking about it, so I'm gonna make this the last time I mention it. It's received very few user reviews, but at 96% positive, so the people who play it seem to love it, but there is also a free demo, so it is risk-free to check out Moons of Ardan if you're curious. And then for one that we've been watching for a few years now, but it's getting a full release soon, Dream Engine's Nomad Cities. This is a survival city building game with flying cities. You build, automate, and defend a flying city to survive in a wacky, nightmare-infested post-apocalyptic world full of strange science and dreams. So this isn't a particularly Earth post-apocalyptic world, but it is still post-apocalyptic, and it's got a sort of Factorio light thing going on with conveyor belts and stuff like that. You build up your city on this platform and in the surrounding areas, but eventually the nightmare creatures which are wave attacking your city eventually get too overwhelming, and you have to lift off with what you can and fly to another location. As you go from location to location, you collect resources, you progress through a tech tree, you build up more advanced buildings, and you discover ancient mysteries as to what really happened in this world. And you do have to manage your fuel and weight for your city, because you can't just fly around infinitely. So this one entered early access in the middle of 2021. And it's got mostly positive reviews, about 75% positive on Steam, and it is sort of an interesting kind of approach to city builders. It was supposed to spend about 2 years in early access, but we are past that right now. However, they did say the next update will be the 1.0 full release version of Dream Engine's Nomad Cities. It should be early in 2024, where this is fully released. I'm gonna mention this one more time. Timberborn. I think everyone knows about Timberborn. It's one of the most successful city builders of the last decade. It is a vertical, environmental city builder which has beavers as your citizens. Humans are long gone and the world is struck by droughts and toxic waste, and you have to build a wooden lumber city with production chains, harvesting of resources, and surviving the elements. So I don't think I have to get too much into this one. As I mentioned, it is already very popular and it's been in early access since towards the end-ish of 2021. So it's been a couple years in early access on Steam, and it's very popular. It's got a very positive user rating on Steam at 94% positive, so people are loving Timberborn. And it also just keeps getting more and more updates. Most recently, Bad Water, which just adds even more stuff to the game. There's multiple factions of beavers to choose from with different playstyles and buildings and resources. And generally, it's just a safe bet. Like, it's a pretty complete game. It feels pretty complete, even though it's in early access technically. You know, I played it last and I didn't really feel like it's missing anything, but they keep adding more stuff anyway. So it is still in early access, and they originally planned for at least a year in early access, but of course we're way past that. I could imagine a full release in 2024 at some point because, you know, what else is there to add? But they might think of more stuff and keep it in early access. This is going to be the last time I properly list Timberborn, mainly because it's been so long. It's generally considered very good. For another contentious one, World Turtles. This is another city builder where you build your city on the back of a giant animal. This one is particularly Terry Pratchett-esque with a turtle, and this turtle carries your entire civilization on its back through outer space. Your people, the Meeps, are trying to save it. So you need to cooperate with the turtle rather than conquer it, but you will need to harvest, build, research, and explore the void in a sort of a wholesome turtleback builder. Now, this one entered early access in the middle of 2023, to few and mixed reviews. It's like at 68% positive, but there's been not that many reviews at the time of recording, so it is in early access, but there isn't all that much feedback out there about it. It is supposed to be in early access for 12 to 18 months, so the original plan is for World Turtles to fully release in 2024, but it seems like it's gonna need a number of updates to draw people into the game first and also increase their opinion of it. World Turtles has some promise, maybe just watch it for now and see how it develops through the next year. Okay, I know animal city builders are kind of the norm these days, with Timberborn being beavers and Against the Storm having lizards and beavers, but this one threw me off. It's called United Penguin Kingdom. It's a city building game where you build a penguin settlement and you satisfy the various needs of your penguins while dealing with the seals and killer whales. And I don't know, something feels a bit weirder about it being penguins compared to beavers, maybe because beavers do naturally build certain things, but then lizards don't, and that sort of felt okay in Against the Storm. So why do penguins feel so weird? Maybe because they don't have hands? They just have flippers, so how do they build anything? Anyway, this is what it is. It's a penguin city builder. You'll satisfy the needs of your penguins with food, decorations, entertainment venues, coolers, luxury houses, while surviving attacks from killer whales and thieving seals. I mean, it's everything you would expect from a city builder these days. It's just penguins. Now, full release is set for 2024, but there is also a free demo, but it's listed as a separate listing on Steam, which is what I prefer, because then people can leave reviews on it. And the free demo is a prologue called United Penguin Kingdom Huddle Up, and that has actually been receiving some quite good reception. A number of user reviews coming in at 90% positive, so despite the weird theme and any hang-ups you might have, United Penguin Kingdom is getting off to a good start with the free prologue, which you can try, and then full release should be later on in 2024. Now, I know there's been a number of city builders on the backs of giant animals, but this one is probably the most successful one so far, The Wandering Village. This is a city building game set on the back of a giant wandering creature called an onbu. You build your settlement and form a symbiotic relationship with this colossus, and you have to survive together in a post-apocalyptic world contaminated by poisonous plants and hostile environments. Now, this one has been in early access since about the middle of 2022, so it's been a while, but it's received thousands of user reviews at 90+% positive. Recent reviews are at 95% positive, people are loving it, and after playing some of it myself, it is quite enjoyable. You do sort of feel like you are protecting and living with this giant creature. They've been adding in more biomes and more designs and more buildings. There's recently been a big villager update, which just improves a number of the gripes people have been having about the game, even improving the UI and villager behavior. Having said all of that positive stuff, it was supposed to be in early access for 1 year or longer. So although that is not specific for how long it was going to take, it is taking or longer. As we're going into 2024, it's probably going to be at least 2 years total in early access. But it seems like it's one of those early access games which is safe to jump into now if you like the theme and the gameplay of it. The Wandering Village overall seems like a safer bet, especially for the city builders set on the back of a giant creature. Next, Synergy. Humans live on a hostile planet in this survival city builder, where you develop your city, face natural disasters, make the right choices, and explore this environment-changing world, while keeping your people happy despite extreme weather conditions. This one really stands out to me because it's clearly trying to be like the old impression city builders, but it's sci-fi, and this art style is unlike pretty much every other game. It's sort of like a comic book-esque kind of art style, combined with the old impression city builders, but sci-fi. There's a lot to be curious about here. Now, it is a survival city builder, what we come to expect. You have resources, you have to survive, there's dangerous weather, and you'll be exploring this sort of world map to unlock other regions. And explorable world maps and city builders are clearly a thing that people love. That's why so many of these games have it. But yeah, we haven't really seen all that much besides the trailers, which do look good and showing off quite a bit right now. We shouldn't have to wait too long because it's aiming for a Q1 2024 release, so Synergy should release sometime in the coming months. For a sequel, Airborne Empire. Build your sky city while exploring a vast landscape in an open-world RPG city builder. You combine methodical construction and management of a city, but you also have to consider lift, balance, and propulsion for flying your city around. Plus, they're adding in a lot of RPG elements compared to the previous game, including characters, dangers, and adventures. So if you haven't played the previous game, it was called Airborne Kingdom, and it was sort of cool if a little bit straightforward. You sort of built up a basic city and flew around, achieving resource objectives. This Airborne Empire feels like it's going much, much further, and it sort of feels like what Airborne Kingdom was supposed to be. It's just a much bigger scale. Airborne Empire is supposed to be releasing into early access in Q2 of 2024, so we should see this properly through the middle of the year. And they are planning for 1 year or longer as well in early access. So 2025 for a full release for Airborne Empire should definitely be playable in 2024. This next one a lot of people have been really excited for, Laysara Summit Kingdom. You build and expand your very own settlements in high mountains. Carefully plan production chains and satisfy various needs of your 3-caste society while dealing with mountainous hazards, such as weather breakdowns and avalanches. So this is a survival city builder that's having some extreme conditions because you're literally building on a mountain, on its side and on top of it. I mean, generally it looks good and it seems like the mechanics are interesting with just enough twists to set it apart. They were planning for an early access release by 2023, but they could not make it. It's taking a little bit longer and they're aiming for an early access release at the start of 2024, so it should get into early access in the coming months. And they plan to be in early access for 6 to 12 months, so could be a late 2024 full release for Laysara Summit Kingdom, but maybe it'll go into 2025, which is very likely. But also at the time of recording this video, there is a free demo so that you can just go check out. A lot of people have been waiting to play Laysara Summit Kingdom. If you don't mind checking out demos, you can do that right now. Otherwise, the early access release will start sometime soon, and then hopefully a full release later in the year. Of course, for one that's already a massive success, Farthest Frontier. This game released into early access in 2022, and it was just a massive hit. It was a really good building game. You build up your village, it's a survival sort of thing with military aspects. The crop rotation system is really cool. It actually allows you to rotate your crops to the benefit of the crop, so you can min-max that if you want. It had a lot of rough edges and bugs at the start of early access, but those have been fixed over the last couple years. And it's received over 14,000 user reviews on Steam at 85% positive. So yeah, it's going well. In this game, you protect and guide your people as you forge a town from untamed wilderness at the edge of the known world. You harvest raw materials, hunt, fish, and farm to survive. You produce crafted items for sale and trade. And then you equip your people to battle for your survival against the elements and outside threats. So you probably already know about this game, and if you haven't jumped in, it's probably safe to jump in now. They are planning to leave early access and fully release in the middle of 2024, and Crate Entertainment, the developers of Farthest Frontier, and also the developers of Grim Dawn, by the way, they are planning to finish a few projects in 2024 because they got some things on the horizon. So we expect Farthest Frontier to be finished, and then they're supposedly moving on to maybe an RTS, but we're not too sure about that quite yet. But yeah, Farthest Frontier, safe bet, good game, check it out. Then, yes, of course, I'm going to mention Manor Lords. Everyone always asks me to mention Manor Lords, so here it is again. It fits into so many lists and genres, so I mean, you know about Manor Lords. It looks amazing. We played the demo here on the channel and it was optimized to an insane level. You could somehow see every blade of grass and I was getting solid frames. It's a medieval strategy building game which has this RTS element, but also in-depth city building and large-scale tactical battles and complex economic and social simulations with resource gathering and production and seasons and trade and diplomacy and so much, okay? Everyone is hyped for Manor Lords. It's promising so much. The demos we've played seem to be delivering on those promises, and it's got a set release date of the 26th of April, 2024, so we don't even have to wait that long for it. It's just a few months away from the time of making this video. So really, if you're watching this video, you probably already know about Manor Lords. If you haven't heard about Manor Lords, go check it out. If it really does deliver on its promises, it's probably going to be one of the biggest games of 2024. If it doesn't deliver, it's going to be one of the biggest letdowns. So please deliver on your promises, Manor Lords. Next, we've got a sequel to a popular game, Endzone 2. The first Endzone game was sort of this very solid post-apocalyptic city building experience, and it was very well reviewed and being quite popular. Lots of people played the first Endzone and it really turned out to be something quite nice. Endzone 2, however, is supposed to be even better. Now, if you didn't play the first one, this is a post-apocalyptic survival colony city builder thing where you embark to secure humanity's survival after a cataclysmic disaster. You explore a world and repopulate the last habitable grounds, while making tough decisions and just trying to survive through dangerous weather and managing of resources and just trying to keep everything running. Now, Endzone 2 ran a Kickstarter and it managed to hit its goal, which was a relatively very low goal actually. They were only asking for 30,000 euros, which is obviously not the full budget of producing a game in 2024, but maybe they were just testing interest. But it surpassed its goal, and it seems like we're going to be getting Endzone 2 in early access in Q1 of 2024. And they're saying it's going to take at least 12 months in early access, so we're looking at a 2025 full release for Endzone 2, but definitely playable in 2024. So what are the key differences between Endzone 1 versus Endzone 2? The first thing is zones. So in Endzone 1, you played on one big map where you built a sort of global settlement. But in Endzone 2, the world expands as you uncover different zones. So instead of end zone, it's more end zones. Plural, you know? There's new settler behavior with better pathfinding and job distribution and stuff like that, so your settlers should be better than before. There's going to be vehicles where you can choose your starting location and move your settlement and construct additional vehicles to venture into the treacherous Badlands. The expedition system is getting an overhaul, and of course there's going to be new revamped graphics to make the game look better. So generally speaking, Endzone 2 is looking very promising. The first game was a success. If Endzone 2 is just better than the original, then I think a lot of people will like this. But we'll find out when it enters early access in Q1 of 2024. Then, of course, we can't talk about upcoming city builders without mentioning Frostpunk 2. I regard the first Frostpunk game as one of the best city builders of the last decade, and it might be one of the most influential ones as well. Frostpunk 2 has enormous expectations. So much to live up to. And that's always such a big challenge, because even if it's a good game, good isn't good enough for Frostpunk 2. It has to be amazing. Otherwise people just go back and play Frostpunk 1. Now, if you don't know about Frostpunk, it's a survival city building game set after an apocalyptic blizzard ravaged Earth, and the whole world is just an icy wasteland now. Your city is generally based on heating. In the previous game, there was a central heating pillar, which sort of carries over to this one, but cities seem to be much more sprawling in Frostpunk 2. Also, on top of that, there's always heavy moral choices in terms of what are the laws, what are the rules, and there will be various events where you have to choose what's the right thing to do. So Frostpunk is tied in with all of these moral and governmentorial choices and decisions that you have to make. Now, Frostpunk 2 recently revealed a new gameplay trailer, which does show off a lot more than we've ever seen before. And it does look promising, but it's not gameplay. It's not raw gameplay. It's still pretty much flyovers, circle arounds, and it looks cool, it looks great, but we don't know too much about performance or exactly how a gameplay session will go. Frostpunk 2 has generally been keeping its cards close to its chest, probably for good reason. They're like releasing little bits of glimpses and information to see how people react, and if they see like whether the comments lean too negative or what the positive parts are, then they start adjusting on the back end. That's my guess anyway, because there's just so much that they have to deliver, so they gotta get this right. If they just reveal everything they have right now, then it might give it the wrong impression. So they're being very careful about that. Frostpunk 2 is one of the biggest city builders that's being anticipated right now, and it's supposed to release in 2024, and we can only hope that it lives up to expectations. Then I know this is not a 2024 game, but I'm gonna talk about it now because it's always in the news. City Skylines 2. This released towards the end of 2023. It's out. Tens of thousands of people have reviewed it on Steam, and it's received a mixed review of about 60% for various reasons. Because when you have these games where you've dominated for a decade plus, and you have all this DLC and bug fixes and everything's just sort of done over the last 10 years, how do you even make a sequel that can surpass that? City Skylines 1 dominated this modern urban city builder aesthetic kind of game forever. It was impossible for anyone else to even get in edgewise. Like, it's just that was all we had because no one could live up to it. And when you have dozens of DLC adding more and more content, how do you make a sequel that lives up to that? Apparently, you can't really. So, City Skylines 2 released, but it's clearly not done. It's still being developed, updates are coming, they've been adding more stuff, bug fixes, optimization, and there's still a long way to go for it. So City Skylines 2 might eventually become definitively better than City Skylines 1, but it's got its work cut out for itself. We can only watch City Skylines 2 slowly improve over time. It's not like they don't have the budget to keep developing it, so it'll keep going, it'll keep growing, it'll keep getting better bit by bit by bit. And then maybe later on in 2024, maybe 2025, City Skylines 2 will turn out to be what it was supposed to be. But this is just the state of City Skylines 2 right now, and I'm gonna just mention it because, of course, everyone's thinking about this one. Alright, I know there's a lot of city builders I did not list, and that's because I have lots of reasons to not list them. First of all, I want to just mention all the city builders that are very notable but have been in early access for a long time, and generally I have to cut these off at some point, otherwise the lists are just the same every single year. To breeze through these long early access games that are still in early access, Songs of Six, that has been in early access for 4 years. Ostriv, also 4 years. Empires and Tribes, 4 years. Kingdoms Reborn, 4 years. Flotsam, 5 years. Emir, 5 years. Foundation, 5 years. Workers and Resources, Soviet Republic, 5 years. And also, just as a bonus, Knights Province, it's going to be in early access or beta or whatever for like 10 years. But apparently Knights Province is supposed to be fully released in 2025. We'll see if they actually hit that one. And then I'm going to mention a number of games that have been in development for years. They promise a lot, some have shown some real gameplay or had demos, and they've been just releasing for years. Some of these may actually come out, some may not, but I don't want to be listing the same games again forever. So breezing through this set, Builders of Egypt, Builders of Greece, Nanzhao the Divine Court, which was known as Builders of China, City of Atlantis, City of Robots, Eldorado the Golden City Builder, Viking City Builder, Mythos Build and Survive, Orc War Chief Strategy City Builder, Feudal Baron King's Land, Colonize, Celestial Empire, Dynasty of the Sands, and Akhenaten Rule as Pharaoh. We may or may not see all of those games at some point in the future, besides the ones that currently have free demos or prologues. Alright, there you have it. Press the like button and use the GOG referral link below to support videos like this one. Just click the link and buy any game, it really does help. Thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members who really support this channel. Join if you want your name on future videos. If you want to stay in the know for another genre, go to the next list video linked on screen because city builders are simulation games and you'll likely enjoy all the other tycoon, building and sim games we have in store. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.